Welcome to the show, sports fans. This is the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.
That's right. Welcome in another edition of the Treasure Valley Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, talking District 3 athletics week in, week out. Brandon Baney, joined as always by our District 3 expert, Logan Green. What's up, Logan?
Hey, Brandon, not much, man. Just trying to get some stuff done so we can go do some track and field this week.
Yeah, we're pretty excited. Coming up on Friday on IdahoSports.com, second year in a row, we will be broadcasting the DirectCom Invitational from Davis Field on the campus of Idaho State University in Pocatello. There's going to be 40-ish teams there competing from 5A all the way down to 1A. It's going to be a pretty exciting time. Coverage will start right at 10 a.m. Friday morning, and we'll go until the last event of the day, Logan, which is one of my personal favorites, the 4x1 throwers relay. It's for all those throwers. They get to run a weight relay. It's a good time.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen that one before. So that should – I was not a track person, so I'll admit that. So that should be fun to watch. Hopefully the weather cooperates. That's been the story of everybody's spring so far, and if you want to call it that, here in Idaho, I think everywhere. So hopefully we'll see what we get.
Yeah, for sure. So it looks like 36 schools is the official count, 3 of which will be coming from the Treasure Valley, District 3. We're going to have Bora from the 5A ranks come over, and then we will also have a pair of 2A powers in Nampa Christian and Melba. So for me personally, I live in East Idaho. I'm excited to see some of these Treasure Valley athletes come over and compete.
Yeah, and we talked about Melba last week, right? And you can just repeat what we said last week about them, if we wanted, or you can just go back and listen. They're all just a great athletes. They're on track, pun intended there, to do well through the rest of the season and at the state tournament. Or the state meet, I should say. And, I think these events are great, right? You get to go and compete against maybe some athletes you don't usually see. And I know that Treasure Valley teams are really strong right now in what we've seen, right? And that maybe some of the best competition is already here. But there's also just great athletes around the state. And so being able to match up against them, it only bodes well. And, you get to meet more people and you get to miss school. So that's the top of the cake, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I'm so excited to see McCoy Richardson from Melba because he pretty much either leads or is right near the top in all the events he competes in, the 200, the 400, the relays, the long jump. I mean, you name it. He is the high jump. He's cleared 6'2". I'm really excited to see the high jump, Logan, because we're going to have the top 4 high jumpers from class 2A, and they've all cleared 6'2" or higher. Braylon Tripp from Malad, McCoy Richardson from Melba, Christian Bush from Bear Lake, who won the high jump at last year's DirectCom invite. And then Seth Hall from Aberdeen, Logan, has cleared 6'8" this year.
Man, yeah.
And
he plays basketball, right? I feel like is he on the basketball team?
Yes.
I feel like I've seen him play basketball in the past. Like Aberdeen came over here and played in a basketball tournament at Owyhee that we did. And he was a fun player to watch then, and he could get up, and apparently he can get up and over a high bar as well.
Yeah, so I think the boys high jump is going to be a must-see event during our broadcast on Friday. And then on the girls' side, I'm looking forward to Kendall Clark, Anna Schaefer, Hallie Arnold, Maya Young, all of these great athletes that Melba boasts on the girls' side. Kendall Clark, also in the high jump, could be fun to watch. So,
yeah, again, I mean, we've seen him play basketball, and now we get to see him do some other stuff, which is always fun. So be sure to check that out. It's on Friday, and you can just watch it right here on the website.
Yeah, by the time you're watching this podcast on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or listening to this podcast on the IdahoSports.com homepage or wherever you download your podcasts, by the time you're listening or watching to this, we'll have a post on the top of the homepage with all the details. and info that you need to know. It's the 2023 DirectCom invite from Davis Field at ISU in Pocatello, Friday, 10 a.m. Be there. It's going to be a good time. So, all right, let's talk a little baseball and softball. I figured we have to start with the best pitching performance I've seen in the state so far this year. It actually came last Monday, but it was very impressive nonetheless. Jewel Bell from New Plymouth throws a no-hitter and was a walk away from a perfect game in a huge victory over Marsing.
Yeah, and just not only this year, but when this performance is just incredible. Not only that, right? She threw a no-hitter, was a walk away, just that one walk from a perfect game. The 18 outs, right? 3 times 6, 3 outs per inning, 6 innings. She had 18 strikeouts. So you can do the math. That's every single out that Marsing had. They struck out. Everybody struck out. Imagine that. You just strike out after another, and they didn't even put the ball in play, right? I mean, that's what I deduct from that. If there was 19 batters, one of them walked and 18 struck out, that ball never went into the field of play. And man, if you're a first baseman, heck of a game right there. You don't have to do anything. You just show up and go out there, have some seeds or whatever you want to do. And I see that week in and week out here with my son and his 9-year-old baseball team where the ball never goes in play. But that's a little different. That is more poor pitching than this is great pitching where, I mean, that I can't imagine how hard that is to do, to strike out an entire team all game long. That deserves all the credit that we can give.
Yeah, I mean, this is simply incredible. Jewel Bell from New Plymouth, and yet the Grims as a team sliding a little bit in the standings because Nampa Christian just continues to really, they came in with little fanfare and have been one of the pleasant surprises. They're 3-1 in the league, tied with Cole Valley Christian, but they're 11-2 overall. And in fact, Cole Valley Christian will play Nampa Christian next Wednesday. That game could decide the Western Idaho Conference regular season title.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and right now they're sitting in a spot where New Plymouth, right? They have not beat. They did not. They lost to Cole Valley Christian earlier in the week, right? And they lost to Nampa Christian. So they've lost to the two teams, quote, above them and defeated the two teams below them, which is you beat who you're supposed to beat, you lose who you're supposed to lose to, so to say, right? They're right there in the middle, and they need to beat one of those other two teams, Melba or Nampa Christian, to get into that next level, right? I mean, it is kind of crazy ever since that performance, right? They ended up beating Bear Lake on Friday, but then lost 4 games. They've lost 5 of their last 6 games. They played in that Glens Ferry tournament this weekend, and lost to Malad, Westside, North Fremont, and beat Bear Lake mixed in there. So kind of a tough weekend for them after a huge performance early in the week last week.
Yeah, so we'll see if New Plymouth can get it straightened out. But for now, Nampa Christian, Cole Valley Christian continue to be in the driver's seat there. We had a lot of District 3 athletes qualify for our heavy hitters list for softball from the past week, Logan. We had Marissa Puga from Wilder, Riley Bake of Fruitland. We had Natalie McLancich of Middleton. And you can tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong or not. Lola Crosby, Cole Valley Christian, and Allie Marion from Nampa Christian. Pick one to highlight.
It's always tough, right? Because again, this list is not in this is the best, this is the worst of the best. It's just in chronological order. And there are differences. Like let's just look at some examples, right? Middleton and Natalie McLanchich, hopefully that's right, like you said. She has a huge performance, going 4 for 5 with a home run in a 13-8 victory over Rocky Mountain, who is one of those teams in the top half of the SIC. That's a great performance. But then you look at Marissa Puga in Wilder, who Wilder, they win 28-1. And so a little bit different of a game. Got to go to the plate 5 times, 2 triples, a double, and was hit 3 RBIs and 3 runs scored. In the books, you might look at that and say that's a lot better than what Natalie did. But you compare situations, and I think that can weigh in there. But you know what? I'm going to take Marissa Puga. I think that's a great performance. 28-1. I don't care who you are to hit the ball that many times. That's impressive. 2 triples, and we mentioned this last week, I think, or at least I said it, or maybe I said it to somebody else. I feel like a triple is the hardest. It's the hardest base hit to get, right? That a lot of it has to go to the right spot. A lot of things have to go right for you to get to third base only. And to get 2 of those in a game, that's some good hitting. So we're going to go there for the senior from Wilder.
Yeah, especially in softball where the field is a little more condensed.
Right.
It's a little more scrunched together than in baseball.
Speed to get to third base. It's impressive.
Yeah, pretty impressive for sure. So, all right, Marissa Puga from Wilder. And I will say that Wilder got a 28-1 victory over Notice. Big story there is Notice has a team. They had to basically punt all of their March games in an attempt to get enough players out for the team. Now, it's a lot of freshmen that are comprising this Notice roster, but I'm so glad to see that Notice was able to get enough girls together to have a team.
Right.
That was their season debut, that game against Wilder, and that was last Monday, so midpoint of April. But the fact that they were able to get enough girls and have a team, I thought was great. I'll admit I didn't think it was going to happen, and so I was pleasantly surprised to see Notice get some girls together, because historically Notice has been a very strong softball program.
Right. So yeah, definitely good to see them get that put together.
Yeah, and we'll keep an eye on the Lady Pirates of Notice as they continue to progress. I'll go with Lola Crosby, the sophomore from Cole Valley Christian. And if you want to see what all of the other athletes did to qualify for our heavy hitters list, it's on the homepage at IdahoSports.com. You can check it out there. But last Thursday, Cole Valley playing Weiser in a non-conference game. They get a 9-8 walk-off win courtesy of Lola Crosby. She goes 3 for 4, 2 doubles, 5 RBIs. And that 5th and final RBI was the walk-off in the bottom of the 7th inning. So Lola Crosby and Cole Valley walking off against Weiser. Way to go for the sophomore.
Yeah, and even that's taken down a class ahead of you, so to say, at least for now, for Cole Valley.
Yes, Cole Valley will be a 3A team starting next year. And Weiser's no slouch. Weiser is ranked in the top 5 of the 3A softball coaches poll. So it was a good win for the Chargers for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely feeling it now. And I mean, the baseball team is also performing well. So a good spring sports season for Cole Valley all around.
Yep. All right. Let's take a quick look at the standings in softball, Logan. We talked about on last week's Prepcast that we're going to get to a point in the season where there's just naturally going to be some separation between the top of the league and the bottom of the league. Where have you seen that play out in the standings?
I mean, you look at, if we just start from 5A, right, and trickle down. We kind of just talked about the 2As just a minute ago with New Plymouth and Melbourne, Nampa Christian, all that. But you start looking at 5A, and we talked about Eagle, right, and they've kind of been who we liked the best in that conference, and right now there they are. They sit at 7-0. They've started to come across a little bit of separation there. Middleton is next at 6-1, and then Timberline is right there next. Waihe, Capital, Cuna, and I think that those are the best teams. Those 6 teams. I mean, Middleton lost to Cuna and to Timberline. Those are their only 2 losses on the season, and both of those 2 teams are kind of right there in that mix. Those teams have 1, 2. Losses. Cuna does have 3, but then you start getting down and you've got like Rocky Mountain with 4, Meridian, Boro with 5. And so I think you're seeing the line right there around those top 6. You can throw Mountain View in there as well, but I think you've got a little separation there.
Yeah. And the top 5, no, you're fine. The top 5 in the coaches poll this week, all 5A SIC schools. So I think the proof is in the pudding there.
Yeah. And it's going to be a battle, right, to get to state. Like there's, I think, 6, possibly 7 teams if you include maybe Mountain View into that mix. But I really think that CUNA, Capital, Owyhee, Timberline, Middleton, Eagle, those 6, I think that's probably the line right there. And, those 6 going to be battling it out to earn a right to go to state and positioning. Because what's tough is, I think any of those teams can beat up on each other. Now, obviously, Eagle has not lost in conference play, but Middleton has lost to teams below them in CUNA and Timberline. And Owyhee has played close games with some of those teams above them. So seeding is going to matter when it comes down to it. So winning as many games in the regular season as you can is extremely important.
Yeah. So Logan, can you tell me without looking, of those 5 teams that are ranked in the coaches poll from the SIC, can you tell me of the big 6 that we've identified, which one isn't ranked?
Without cheating and looking?
Yes.
Is it Capital?
No,
Capital is ranked. I was just looking at it now. I don't have a photographic memory, obviously. CUNA was.
It's going to surprise you. Timberline.
Yeah, because I knew, because Eagle was 1, Middleton's 2, and Owyhee is 3. Is that correct? In the top,
Owyhee 2, Middleton 3. But
okay, yeah. Those 3 are the top 3. But yeah, it's very surprising that Timberline not in the top 5.
And when we do the East Idaho Prepcast later, I think we're going to have some opinions about Thunder Ridge not being ranked in that coach's poll either. Thunder Ridge pretty good this year, but that's another topic for another day.
And you look at Timberline, right? Their schedule. They've got a couple of losses thrown in there from, like, they lost to Capital, one of those big 6 we were just talking about. They have a loss to Bora, Lewiston. But then there they have their last 2 times losing were to Eagle and CUNA. So really, they're keeping it in that group, right? Of they're losing to teams that are in that mix, but then at the same time, beating some of them, as they beat Middleton, they beat Mountain View a couple weeks ago, and they did beat Capital earlier in the year, and so it's not like they haven't done poorly. They're just right there, and they have a big game tomorrow, Thursday, against Owyhee, with a chance to maybe make a statement there.
Yeah, huge opportunity there for the Wolves. So as we go to 4A, kind of the same thing, right? Bishop Kelly, Skyview, Emmett. Then there's that line in the sand, and then it's everybody else. Those are kind of the top 3.
Yep. And I mean, we kind of talked about that last time. And the 4A is both in baseball and softball. Kind of there's some clear separation of teams, and I think that's about what it is. You've got those top 3: BK, Skyview, Emmett, and then everybody else just trying to catch up.
Yeah, and BK to me is still dangerous. I call them the bomb squad because they've got so many players that can hit it and leave the yard. Harper Campanella, especially the great senior. But if you look at, they picked up a non-conference game with Eagle that was postponed from earlier this year. They played on Monday night. They only lost 6-4 to the best 5A team. Now, they had played Eagle earlier in the year and lost 22-6. So to me, pretty good improvement for BK as the season has gone along. They have basically rolled through untested. They have swept the season series with Skyview already, 17-13 and 21-6 last Friday night. And they've already taken the first game of the season series against Emmett, 17-7. They play Emmett Thursday night. And if they win that, you can pretty much lock it up for Bishop Kelly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're on a step even above that, because you were just mentioning they lost to Eagle by 2, right?
Yep.
Earlier this week, but their only other loss, right? You mentioned they lost to Eagle earlier in the year, and then they lost by 1 to Owyhee. So 3, they'd lost to Riverton, Utah. I don't know. I'm guessing they're a good team. Just a guess. But their 3 Idaho losses come to the top 2 teams in 5A.
Yeah,
and,
I will
and 2 of those 3 by a total of 3 runs. So yeah.
A quick glance at the Riverton Wolves from Utah. They're 8-1. So yeah, pretty good.
So yes. So I mean, if you throw out the 22-6 game that the Knights lost against Eagle, they have a 7-6 loss to Owyhee, and then a 6-4 loss to the Eagle. So 2 games separated by 3 runs against the best 2 teams in a classification above you. So,
yeah,
BK looking good.
Same thing kind of in 3A, where Homedale is kind of in a tier of its own, right? They've won the past couple of 3A titles, 13-5 overall, perfect 6-0 in the league. Then in the second tier, I would say, is Weiser at 4-2. Then in the third tier, McCall Donnelly and Fruitland. The Vandals are 3-2. The Grizzlies are 2-3. They just played, or they are playing they just played, and it was a slugfest Monday night. McCall Donnelly gets a 24-22 victory over Fruitland.
Just that sounds like a football score.
Yeah.
Crazy. And 3A is, I feel like it's also got a step where it's Homedale, and then down maybe 2 or 3 steps is Weiser, and then really down is everybody else. They've just, I mean, you look at the overall records, and only 4 wins apiece for McCall Donnelly, Fruitland, Parma, and Payette. Just Homedale kind of is in the driver's seat.
Yeah, Homedale on a 9-game winning streak. Among the highlights, an 11-4 win over Weiser. Their next closest competition, they will play the Wolverines next Wednesday, the 26th, in Homedale. I mean, they win that, it's pretty much wrapped up. So Homedale continuing to play well. Spoiler alert, there's going to be at least one Trojan on our heavy hitters list next week. And you'll have to stay tuned for that. As Homedale has already turned in a pretty impressive performance on Monday night, a 10-0 win over Parma. We already talked 2A softball. Let's wrap up with 1A, where things continue to be interesting at the top. You have a tie for first place right now between Glens Ferry and Vision Charter, dropping down from 2A to 1A. Vision Charter competing very well in their first season at the 1A level. And then Greenleaf Friends very quietly is 5-2 as well.
Yeah, and I don't know when have we seen Vision Charter in this position, right? It's been a while, at least from in my poor memory that we've seen them in this sort of position. They cracked the coaches poll top 5, even picked up some first place votes in that poll this week. And I think they fell to Greenleaf, but then that goes back to your Greenleaf comment, right? That Greenleaf also a team that needs to be considered in that conversation. They had a couple of tough losses early on in the season, and then fell to Glens Ferry last week twice, but then got back on the right path, and they really took it to Vision Charter, a 12-2 win over a team that picked up some votes in that first place position. And Vision Charter, though, on the opposite side, we talked about it early on. They beat Glens Ferry in 8 innings, 20-19 earlier in the season. And so they have that in their back pocket, right? They have that victory over the Pilots, right? Who seem to always be in the position of winning a state championship. They're always in that conversation. And so it's a big win looking back for Vision Charter, but Greenleaf right there as well on their coattails.
Yeah, so it looks like, looking back at the archives on IdahoSports.com, which by the way is a cool feature you can do. You can click on a team's schedule, and you can look at their season results all the way back to 2009, the 2009-10 season. So I know a lot of people use our site to research, teams historically from the past. It looks like Vision Charter had softball for the first time in 2019, the spring of 2019. So they've
only been a team for 4 years.
Yeah, and so they didn't play at all in 2020, COVID, obviously. Yeah. COVID. But in 2019, they went 2-11. 2021, 3-14. Last year, 2-14. So they had 5 career wins as a program in 3 years coming into this season. They've already surpassed that with just 1 season of play.
And now they have 7, and they're in the top 5.
Yeah.
In the polls. That's a pretty good jump. And it wasn't like a build-up jump. It was like a slow step, and then boom, okay, here we are. They've played very well. They've taken advantage of what's been in front of them and done well.
And they have 16 players on the roster. Now, I would say half of them are freshmen, sophomores, but 16 players, pretty good. And the new coach this year, Billy Lamatina, who also coached the girls basketball team at Vision Charter this year. And so he's done a tremendous job with this group of girls at Vision Charter. It's been really fun to watch.
They have 2 seniors. Is that what I'm seeing? No, they have about 4 seniors on their team. So still a pretty young squad.
Yeah, 4 seniors and 1 junior, which is odd, and then the rest are underclassmen, but it's working. So keep it up, Vision Charter. It's really fun to see schools that haven't been in this type of situation before get there and achieve new things. It's always fun to see. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's shift to baseball real quick. We had a lot of baseball players make our heavy hitters list from the Treasure Valley. Again, I'll ask you to pick one. We had Henry Downey from Skyview, Lakin Wilson from Vision Charter. Speaking of Vision Charter, they're pretty good in baseball too.
Yeah.
Brock Spencer from Weiser, Robert Orlowski from Middleton. Go ahead and pick one.
I know. I was looking at these earlier, trying to make a decision. I think I'm going to go Brock Spencer. I just think you hit 2 homers in a game, in a conference game like that. I think you deserve that. I mean, you look at Robert Orlowski though, and you go 4 for 4, and you score every time, and you steal 3. That's a tough performance. But I like Brock Spencer leaving the yard twice in that win over McCall Donnelly.
Yeah, and Brock Spencer, one of the very few players that are back from last year's Weiser team. It was a very senior heavy team that we got to see at state, Logan. They got to state and played well. And Brock Spencer was an everyday starter as a sophomore, now kind of one of the leaders as a junior. So yeah, 2 home runs in a 14-4 win over McCall Donnelly last week. I'll go with Orlowski from Middleton. You kind of already said what he did, but to me, he's for as good of a hitter as he is, and he's on our heavy hitters list, I think he's an even better pitcher, to be honest. He really can do it all for that Middleton team.
Yeah, and Middleton just seems to be on a roll right now in baseball, and he's one of the reasons why, right? I mean, Middleton, right now, you look at them and you say, does anybody have a better baseball plus softball combination in the state right now between the 2 programs, right? I'm sure you could find some others, but they've got to be up there in that conversation. I mean, the Vikings right now 7-0 in conference play, 16-2 overall. 2 of those losses came against conference teams, but just non-conference games. If I'm correct, maybe I'm not, but they lost to, I think it was Eagle and Owyhee by a combined 3 runs. But outside of that, they have not lost.
Yeah. Orlowski, of course, is going to the University of Texas, San Antonio, Division I program, the Roadrunners. He's going to be a pitcher. He's got kind of that high leg, he brings the leg way up in his pitching delivery. And because of that, he gets late deception on his pitches. It's harder for the hitters to pick up, I think, because of his delivery. So anyways, Robert Orlowski is going to be so much fun to watch, and has been. I mean, he's been doing this now for 3+ years at Middleton as his great career is coming to a close. So let's take a look at the standings real quick in baseball. Where are we seeing the same separation, or are things still kind of muddy? At the 5A level, you kind of touched on it. It is Middleton playing pretty well, 7-0 in league play, 16-2 overall. Owyhee is right on their heels, though, and the Storm are, of course, the defending 5A champs. 2-1. Middleton got that win.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was a grinder, and I mean, they played again, like we mentioned, a non-conference game earlier in the year, and that one was 4-5. So both, it's a wash, right? Middleton and Owyhee, aggregate between the 2 of them, they're tied, and I think those 2 are just are neck and neck. And Eagle did beat Middleton as well. They're going to get a rematch next week on Tuesday, and so we'll see how that one goes. But if you look at the standings, I mean, Middleton on top. Middleton and Owyhee are 1-2, and I think maybe you could even say 1A and 1B. Really, they so far it's them. Rocky Mountain is next at 5-3, and Middleton took care of business against the Grizzlies 9-2 last week. So just looking at that, what they've been able to do, I think those two teams are in a class of their own, and then you've got some other teams with three losses, and then I think you start to drop down in that. And I think again, if we look at the top six, I think that will end up being the top six: Middleton, Owyhee, Rocky, Bora, Eagle, Cuna.
Yeah. It's still a little muddy there as we get closer to the middle.
Yeah,
for sure. 4A SIC, Skyview 6-1 in the league, 13-3 overall. They beat Bishop Kelly last Friday night by a 6-1 score. They swept the season series with BK. The biggest stretch for Skyview is coming up. Their next two games, Friday the 21st at Columbia, next Tuesday the 25th at home against Columbia. So they've got the Cats coming up twice. And
back.
I feel like that's probably going to decide the regular season title. Now, Emmett is still in the race. Skyview did beat Emmett 10-1, and then they play Emmett in the regular season finale. But to me, it's these next two games, Skyview, Columbia, and they're in the same. Are they in the same school district, Logan, or are they're both in Nampa?
Yes, I think they're both Nampa school. Yeah, because it's Nampa, Skyview, and Columbia, Nampa school, because they're not that far apart from each other.
Right.
Really,
this is big rivalries. Yeah.
Yeah. And to go back to back, that's always fun. Columbia did stumble, and if I'm Columbia, I got to watch out, right? They're still in great shape. Like we've talked about them, they're a good team. They should be at state and should be a contender to win it, I think. But you throw in a couple weeks ago, right? We talked about it. They got upset by Caldwell, right? And then on Tuesday, so last night, they fell to Bishop Kelly 6-5. And so all of a sudden now they have two losses. If they were to lose both of those games to Skyview, then all of a sudden Bishop Kelly now in that they're going to, if Bishop Kelly were to win, again, this hypotheticals, right? All of a sudden those two teams are tied right there with 4 losses. So it's critical I think more so for Columbia to at least split that series, so to say, with Skyview over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and Columbia's got to really be lamenting how that game went down last night. The Wildcats had a 5-1 lead after 4 innings of play, Logan. They would not score again. Bishop Kelly scores once in the bottom of the 5th to make it 5-2. They scored 3 times in the bottom of the 6th to tie the game at 5. It goes to extra innings, bottom of the 8th, Knights walk it off. So that's a gut punch of a way to lose for Columbia.
Yeah, pretty much held the lead most of the game, and then just to have it kind of slip away there. And really, I mean, it does make a big difference because you've got those 2 games with Skyview coming, and you now can't afford to lose both of those. And really, there's no room for error the rest of the way. I mean, between that they've got Valley View, Ridgeview, and then a rematch with Caldwell, who obviously we've seen them be able to beat Columbia. So you just never know. There's just no room for error now for Columbia.
Yeah, you said the word error. The winning run for Bishop Kelly was unearned, which means it came at the expense of a fielding error by Columbia. Their only fielding error of the game in the 8th inning as well. So that's just a tough way to go. Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. 3A, if we look at the Snake River Valley Conference, Fruitland and Payette are the 2 lead teams. Fruitland 6-0, 12-2-1 overall. Payette at 5-1. Now we saw Fruitland coming. I'll be honest. I thought Homedale would be better. They're 9-7. They're 3-3. They just lost to Parma on Monday. Sean Powers really held the Homedale bats at bay, and Parma's kind of lurking at 2-4. But we touched on Payette last week, but they continue to just go out and rack up the wins.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. They have they lost by 2 runs to Nampa Christian, who's obviously very good. We'll talk about them in a minute. And just a 1-run game to Fruitland. And then since then, I mean, they beat, let's go, why not? Let's beat Weiser, who made it to state last year, and we just talked about them playing well. And then they beat Melba, who is a really good team at the 2A level, who actually just beat Nampa Christian, right? If you want to do this circle of who beat who and who beat who. But I mean, Payette, all of a sudden, you look here at the back end of the schedule, and they are going to be, outside of maybe that game against Fruitland and then the game at Homedale, they're gonna be if there were Vegas lines on these games, I think the Pirates would be favored, and right now, based on what they've done, this is a team that I think legitimately has a shot at state and to do well there. Like, from what we've seen, how they've been able to compete with good teams, like this is not a there's not a team that maybe would get there and just be happy to be there. I think they have a legit shot at playing in that winners bracket on day 2.
Yeah, they've got a really dynamic freshman. I believe it's Jason Silva. But either way, he's all over the place. He pitches a little, he runs the bases extremely well. And he's only a freshman for Payette. So yes, Payette hosts Fruitland next Wednesday. So we'll find out. That game could decide the regular season title. They still have a trip at the end of the year to Homedale too. That's kind of tricky, I think. But Payette keeps rolling. 2A baseball. Nampa Christian has stumbled a little bit here recently. Now they're still in first place. They're 11-3 overall. They're 4-1 in the league, but they come in now on a 2-game losing streak. They lost to Wendell at the Glens Ferry Woodbat tournament on Saturday, 4-1. And then they just lost on Monday night to not Coal Valley Christian, who's in second place, not North Star Charter, who's been playing well, but they lose to Melba 4-3. And so now they're on a 2-game losing streak ahead of a game with North Star Charter tonight, the 19th.
Yeah, and they have a brutal stretch, Brandon. Looking at what Nampa Christian, you mentioned North Star Charter, but then Friday it doesn't get any easier when they play Fruitland. Of course, that's not a conference game, but still, that's 4 tough games in a row for them, and they still have to play Coal Valley Christian and Melba down the stretch. So it is a tough schedule right now on dock for Nampa Christian, and not a position we've seen them in lately over the last few years, right? Usually they just roll through everything and there's no questions asked. But right now, still sitting in first place, and still until somebody knocks them off, I'm not going to bet against Nampa Christian. But a little bit of competition ahead of them, maybe sniffing some blood in the water, and maybe an opportunity to take advantage here over the next few weeks.
Yeah, plus they have a non-conference doubleheader with that Wendell team that just beat them as well. So first-year coach Jake Allen taking over for the retired Mark Harris. And now for the first time, we've seen in a couple of years, Nampa Christian, a little bit of adversity. I think this is a good thing for them. And I think ultimately they'll figure it out and be fine. And, we're talking about a 1-run loss, right?
Right. And I don't think, it's like, I would never bet against them to not just be right back. I just think other teams, maybe, you just saw them run rampant through things in the past. I think maybe now you see other teams saying, hey, we can compete here. Maybe we've got a shot.
And another wild game, that game with Melba, Nampa Christian had a 2-0 lead going to the top of the 7th. They bring in Landon Mills to basically try and close it out. I think, and he ends up not retiring anybody. He doesn't get a single out, gives up 3 runs. Melba scores 4 in the top of the 7th to take a 4-2 lead. And then Nampa Christian steals one back in the bottom of the 7th, and they almost tie it up, but they come up just short. So kind of like Columbia, they give away the lead late.
Yeah, and again, when you do that, it just leaves you now no room for error. That was your quote error, right? That you were given, and now you just can't do it twice, because there are some teams right there on your tail with only 2 losses, and let's just say they win out and Melba wins out, and then they meet that last game of the regular season and Melba wins. All of a sudden, Melba is that top seed, and so a lot can happen over the last few weeks. A lot of tough games for both teams. We'll see how it shakes out, but I just think that there is definitely some competition that Nampa Christian maybe hasn't faced in the past.
Definitely. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. And then we go to the 1A ranks, where Vision Charter, unlike the softball team, which is currently sharing the spotlight with Glens Ferry, Vision Charter's baseball team, under the direction of Coach Caleb Wilson, all alone in first place. They are 7-1 overall and 7-1 in the conference. And they have already played, some of their more difficult games. They've played Glens Ferry twice and split with the Pilots. They played Gem State Tuesday night and won 15-4. Gem State had gotten off to a hot start. They've cooled off a little bit. Really, the defining stretch of the season, I think, is going to come at the very end when they play Garden Valley twice.
Yeah, they've got Garden Valley and Horseshoe Bend mixed into that, and those two teams just seem to always put out good products. Some years they've been combined, but separate this year, and yeah, that's a tough back end of the schedule. But you've played well against what you had in front of you. They also took care of business against Rimrock, another team that is always in the mix as well, and they've been getting it done. So Vision Charter, both baseball and softball. I mentioned Middleton. I guess I should go back and mention Vision Charter in that conversation of teams that have that 1-2 punch in baseball and softball. That right now they seem to have it rolling in both games, both sports. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's eerie how similar the rosters are. Softball roster, 16 players, 4 seniors, 1 junior, the rest underclassmen. Baseball roster, 17 players, 5 seniors, 1 junior, the rest underclassmen. Eerie. It's pretty similar.
Yeah, they've got it's funny how that works out, but we'll see what happens. I think they've got another good shot, a chance to maybe mix things up. And again, we talked many times about the struggles of 1A softball or baseball when it comes to state tournament time. And could Vision Charter be a team this year that they can clearly hit? And I think that's one of the things is you got to be able to hit. Look at the runs scored the last few games for them: 15, 25, 19, 20, 12, 25, 16. Outside of their 10-5 loss to Glens Ferry, the first game of the year, they have scored no less than 12 runs a game.
Yeah. And I said this on the North Idaho Prepcast. I just don't know if District 3 is there yet.
Yeah.
To compete with the White Pine League. I would love to see it. I just don't know if they're quite there yet. But we keep saying every year, oh yeah, number 1 seeds are going to win all the games in the NCAA tournament, and Purdue lost this year. So maybe this is the year somebody from District 3 gets it.
It just takes one game, right? You rattle a pitcher, you get them off their game, and I don't know the gamesmanship. I'm just going off last year, Brandon, right? We did, who was it in the first? Kimberly, right? Heavy favorite at 3A. And I can't remember who they were playing in that first round. Fruitland. And they got a lead, right? And they took out their pitcher, said, hey, we'll use them in the next round. And then all of a sudden Fruitland comes out and takes over and wins the game. See, championship run over for you. And you wonder, will somebody do something similar and say, hey, we're going to save this guy for tomorrow. We're going to go out and we're going to use somebody else today. And then you catch a Vision Charter who can score 25 runs in a game, and they just come out and light it up. And then you say, well, oops. And then you might win your next 2 by, in resounding fashion, but you slept on somebody. That might be what it takes to have it happen. I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. And I can't wait until the state tournaments arrive. Again, IdahoSports.com will be broadcasting every single pitch of every single state baseball tournament. So
we'll have video of everything. Should be awesome. It should be fun. And I'll just give my plug. If you have a business and you want to be involved in our broadcasts of the state baseball tournaments, just let me or Brandon know. We'd love to get you set up with that. And it's just a great way because these are all completely free broadcasts, video. We have a play-by-play guy, a color commentator. We got it all. Like, these are not we're just throwing something together real quick so that we can do it. This is we're doing it right. And so, if you want to be a part of that coverage, just reach out to us. We'd love to have you on.
Yep. Brandon at IdahoSports.com. My email's on the screen, and it's Logan at IdahoSports.com as well. All right, Logan, rest up. We got to do a track meet on Friday. You ready for this?
Yeah. I gotta break my big coat back out. I keep putting it away and pulling it back out and putting it away and pulling it back out. And looks like maybe, hopefully, whatever precipitation comes early and then clears out for the rest of the day, and that we'll be excited to see our Bora, Nampa Christian, and Melba communities out there at the race. Be sure to stop by and say hello to us if you're there.
Yeah, we're going to be running around all over the place on Friday at the DirectCom invite, 10 a.m. on IdahoSports.com from Pocatello. All right, until next time, thanks for tuning into the Treasure Valley Prepcast. For Logan Green, I'm Brandon Baney. We'll see you next time on IdahoSports.com.